This is a long drive for someone with nothing to think about. And it's also episode number 265 of the Grunge Bible Podcast. My name's Chris Salona, and I am here with Ethan Shalloway. Ethan, what is going on, brother?
Nothing much, man. Nothing much. Just we are recording on Sunday, beautiful Sunday, and yeah, I'm doing well, man. Nothing too crazy. Just a solid week. The weather's getting beautiful, and had a nice weekend of Modest Mouse in my ears, which we will be getting into today, which I'm very excited. Yeah, man, the Sixers are playing Boston, so our cities are going out.
The Flyers
got their first win against the Penguins last night. So for Phillies fans, we got the Penguins and the Celtics, two teams that we are that we vehemently do not like. So
don't like them very much.
Yeah, so this is good. The Phillies are struggling, so hopefully the Sixers can put up a battle this series, and we have a lot of faith in these Flyers. So yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, we have a 90-minute moratorium on hostilities between you and I regarding the Celtics and the Sixers to knock this podcast out, and then we'll just go back to cursing the ground that each of us walks on. But yeah, this is a good time of year. You got
the Bruins shirt. Yeah, you're not much of a Celtics fan. So
yeah, I'm not a huge NBA fan. But Bruins for sure, they're back in the playoffs this year somehow. They're playing Buffalo, the Buffalo Sabres, and they puck drops tonight for game 1. So by the time this episode comes out, it'll either be 1-0 Buffalo or 1-0 Boston. So we'll see. I love playoff hockey, man. They
call Buffalo upstate New York, I hear.
I do hear that.
They're killing it this year.
Much to the chagrin of my friend Maddie Northman, who listened to the podcast. But hey, you know what? It's all upstate. It always has been.
Exactly. Yeah, man, it's good. I'm glad you're doing well. Yeah, you had a hell of a week,
dude.
Leading up to this, so I guess we got to talk about that.
I think I would like to talk about it for sure. So I was in kind of near you, man. I was in Philly for this past Sunday to Thursday. Kind of hanging out with our good friend Cullen. Eddie Vitter got me through my second divorce, and we saw the final 3 shows of a 6-show residency at the TLA by the Wonder Years, and it was absolutely amazing. I'm still kind of riding the post-concert high that's also mixed in with the post-concert depression, because I'd seen them in Boston the prior Wednesday, so I went Wednesday, Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to the same fucking band, and it was absolutely amazing. Each night just got better than the one before. It was so much fun. Obviously really fun just hanging out with the friends, having some creamers at the Black Taxi, having a couple high lifes here and there, walking around the city at night, that kind of thing. And yeah, I'm riding that high for sure. That was the 14, 15, 16, and 17th show that I've seen of them, and I'm still having more and more fun every time I see them. I just love that band. I have a lot of admiration for everything about them, and I would like to do a podcast on them soon, and we can invite Colin on to chat about it once his professional schedule eases up and he has some time, because I think we got to strike while the iron's hot. But it was awesome. I love Philadelphia too. It's just a really, really great city, and it was a lot of fun. Burned the candle at every possible end, got back home. I was kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit. I had to lift Friday night for like 3 hours, and then I woke up Saturday morning, lifted for 3 hours. My lower back made it through unscathed by the grace of God and all that is holy. And I had a couple good days, and then yesterday got out of the gym, visited my family for a little bit, and then I kind of sat down with a couple beers and listened to this Modest Mouse record that we are going to be discussing today. And all in all, it's been a pretty good weekend. It was the weekend that I needed after the week that I had. So right. Things are pretty good here, and I have nothing to complain about once again.
That's right, dude. That's good. I mean, yeah, it's a full week, man. I mean,
yeah.
a lot of concerts, a lot of full days.
I laughed, I cried, and I thought,
yeah, dude, that's amazing. And yeah, to finish it up with a calm weekend, just hit the gym and then go back to some family time and then some me time. That's awesome. I had this, similar. I had a busy week of just some track meets for the high school and some trainings and whatnot. And on Saturday, we had something in the morning and I trained, and I did the same thing, man. I kind of tucked in for the night, got a few beers, got in the right headspace.
So setting the scene, about 4:00 yesterday afternoon, Saturday, the 18th, Ethan texts me and he says, "Are you going to hiding?" And I was like, "Absolutely, brother. I'm already there. I'm going to rip some Modest Mouse tonight." And I literally just sat in front of my front window with a beer and just listened to this record front to back, and then a little bit extra cherry picking some songs. And it was perfect. I feel like we had similar evenings in that regard.
Yeah, and I had planned. I knew that's what I was going to do. I had the whole house to myself, the homestead, and so I texted you that, and I knew you were doing the same thing. So I went out and I kind of chopped some wood and made a fire and just walked around the property with my headphones in, listening. And as the sun set, and we have a nice property, so it's just fun to walk around and the dog following around and just. Yeah. Just had one of those moments, just you and the record, and it's a good 70 minutes of music, and like I said, front to back. And I did that early. I had a long drive on Friday where I put some time in and I listened.
You were someone who had nothing to think about,
and I turned the brain off and just listened, and so we're gonna get into a lot of that stuff. So thank you for joining us as the Grunge Bible podcast. Continues on episode 265 or whatever it is. And if you're coming in and you're like, wow, this isn't grunge. Well, we have a lot of grunge episodes in the backlog that you can go and check out, and we'll get to more. And Modest Mouse is a very important band to us. We've actually have talked about having this episode come out multiple times. We wanted to talk about it. We've had plenty of conversations that could be, regarded as podcasts between me and you. So their debut album just turned 30 on Thursday. Was it?
Yeah, I believe so. Thursday or Friday, the 16th or the 17th of April, I believe. So we were toying with doing another record, which I'm sure we're going to get to. But as soon as this one, as soon as we found out that it was the anniversary, it was a no-brainer. This record, their debut album has been near and dear to our hearts for a very long time. And I think now's the right time. And I think we're in a good spot to be able to talk about it, because our relationship with it has evolved, where we're sitting now. I'm turning 30 in a couple months, and you're obviously already into your 30s, versus where we were when we were listening to this when we were 24 and 26. And it's been a soundtrack for a lot of things. And as you said, man, they're not grunge, but also, this was one of the first not grunge bands or records that we had been interested in reviewing on the podcast, and glad that it's finally here. But a lot of the tenets and a lot of the this record and this band challenges you and challenges your mind in a way that a lot of the grunge music does as well. It gets you thinking deeper and gets you thinking differently about things and reconsidering things. So from my perspective, it's all the same in that regard, and the value that you can get out of it and what you can learn from it. And it's just a good companion. It's funny. So last week we did the Queens of the Stone Age record, Songs for the Deaf, which is a patented driving album. And this is also another patented driving album that we'll chat about today, but two incredibly different headspaces for driving. This is the, Songs for the Deaf is, you're going on the trip to the destination, and, you do whatever it is that you do while you're there. And this is the one for the trip back home, where you kind of got to slow it down a little bit and, give the mind a little bit more room to wander. So this is going to be a good conversation. I'm looking forward to it. As you said, Ethan, thank you. Everyone out there who's listening to this show at any point in time, if you could go ahead and subscribe, follow, share with a friend, all of that stuff does a great deal to help us out here. We're on a pretty solid upswing right now, so we just want to get as many people into the fold as we can, because I think we've got a good community going here. So if we can provide value to anybody out there, we would love to do that, and you can help us doing that by shouting out the show and following along and sharing it with friends. Also, we'd like to thank everybody that supported us by purchasing merchandise or joining up on Patreon. And if you're interested in supporting us, you can go to the show notes and navigate to either our our merchandise store or to the Patreon. For Patreon, we have a $2, $5, and $10 tier. You can give it any level that you're most comfortable with and that's sustainable for you. And if it's above or below any of those numbers, you can punch in any number that you want and give to us. So we're very appreciative of anything that we get in that regard, and we're especially appreciative of our top tier supporters. We have Abraham and Frank at the top, and we have the Cracker Man. In addition, The rest of the top tier supporters on Patreon are Fuck Soup, Jamie Lynn, Carlene Salona, The Blue Owl, Doug Endy, What the Fuck is Up Denny's, Nikki Six, Black Hole Sean, Seattle 4 Fanboy from New Jersey, the aforementioned Eddie Vedder Got Me Through My Second Divorce, Sherry Matthews, Gochu John, Russell, King Buzzo Stole My Hair, The Michael Dooley Project, A Bit Dusty, Ultra Mega OK, Heidi in Chains, Chris Buckley, and Looking California, Feeling Minnesota.
Thank you, one and all. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I got what I was going to say before, dude. I mean, Modest Mouse is from Washington, just outside of Seattle.
Theoretically,
Issaquah. Yeah. They didn't want to be in this. They didn't want to be influenced by too much by the grunge or the Olympia scenes. They wanted to kind of stick out and be their own. So they are from that area.
Absolutely.
During the 90s.
Similar time period, early 90s, mid 90s. Yep. So it just goes to show you how wide of a net was cast in terms of music at that time. I think, you look through the, the pages of music history, the early 90s were so diverse. If you look at what was charting or, bands that were being formed, bands that were putting out stuff for the first time, there really was something for everyone. And case in point with this podcast, we've discovered and chatted about so many different bands from, the same 5 to 8 year period of time. Yeah. And it's, makes me really happy to know that they're out there and that we can always turn to them when we need them.
Yeah. And as we've been talking about these kind of different albums coming out in different, periods for the artists and just the musical landscape. And this one is when they came out, they're extremely alternative and they were kind of blending a lot of the older stuff, but then kind of blazing a path of their new sound and creating their own space. And we'll get into like kind of the impact because this band has just aged like fine wine, in my opinion. We were really young. Obviously, it was 2 years old when this album came out.
Yeah.
So
I was not listening to this one when it came out.
And it was kind of the immediate reaction. Everybody kind of consumed, how they consumed music in the 90s and how you would find out in bands. So they had their own like niche and cult following, and it's interesting to see how it's transformed over the 2010s and beyond. So. So thank you anyway for everybody that's listening. I'm really excited for this episode, so please enjoy. And like we do always, we are going to start with This Day in Music.
This Day in Music, man. And this is Monday, April 20th, 420. And for a lot of people out there, this is a very significant date. And let's start on April 20th of 1971. And as the legend goes, 5 friends at San Rafael High School in California coined the term 420 as a euphemism for smoking pot. And as time went on, that obviously became, the popular time of the day, perhaps. And, it's become code for, smoking the reefer, as we were saying last week on the episode. But apparently, according to an article this PBS put out, the origin of the date and the term, there's a couple different competing stories, but there's different ones that say it came from a code word from the Bob Dylan song "Rainy Day Women" number 12 and 35, because if you multiply 12 times 35, you get 420. But as time has gone on, we've zeroed it in with some hard-hitting journalism that there was a group of friends at San Rafael High School in California who called themselves the Waldos. And apparently, as the legend goes, one of their friends' brothers was afraid of getting busted for cannabis that he was growing in the woods nearby. So he drew a map and gave it to the teens and gave them permission to go and harvest the lovely crop. And they used to use this, as a code word to get out there and do it. And a brother of one of the Waldos, which, by the way, is a great name for a group of friends, evidently was close friends with Phil Lesh of the Grateful Dead, and apparently they began hanging out in the band circle, and the 420 moniker, using that as a euphemism for smoking pot, took flight, and obviously now it's as ubiquitous as terms come, and I think everybody knows what 420 means. So it's a privilege to put out an episode on 420. I don't know if we've done that before as the calendar goes. So.
No, I don't think we have. And it's nice that it's a Modest Mouse episode, something that, if you want, go partake and listen to the album, and then maybe listen to the pod and, get the brain rolling a little
school,
bit.
Go light up, man.
Oh, yeah. So that's pretty incredible. On 420, on April 20th in 1999, Billy Joel was having a concert in New Jersey at the Meadowlands, and he announced his retirement from touring and recording all pop music.
He's a liar.
And he never did retire from touring.
He's still going, man. I got to tell you, I think last week on the episode, there was for This Day in Music last week, there was a little blurb about how Kiss began one of their farewell tours, and it was like in 1997 or something, and Kiss had done, by the time they actually got off the road, they did like 6 or 7 farewell tours, so it's like the Brett Favre of music, or the Roger Clemens of music, where you just say you're going to retire, and then you come back, and then you say you're going to retire again, and you just come back and back and back. Billy Joel has retired from writing new music. He just plays the hits, which I'm sure is what everybody is interested in. So maybe we'll have to do that with the podcast, Ethan. We'll just say,
I'm sure it's coming.
We're quitting, like we're done. And then the following Monday, we'll just release an episode and act like it didn't happen.
Yeah. I think that wraps up this
day
it's
pretty
music,
pretty
right?
short, for This Day in Music, which is good because I think we're going to have a lot of big thoughts about this Modest Mouse record.
Heady episode coming.
Yeah, man. Let's get into it. And this band, means a lot to each of us, and it's kind of difficult to put into words at times. But Ethan, I know you have some thoughts that you'd like to share before we get into the album proper. So I'm going to kick it back over to you.
Yeah. Yeah, so this band is quite special to me, and I'm going to do, it's kind of that band for me, right? And everybody has that band. So I'm going to do my best to try and articulate what that means specifically to me. And I think, the best way to understand what I'm trying to say is if you'd all enlighten me and maybe pull up another tab and play a Modest Mouse song in the background. I would suggest Custom Concern, because that is the one that I used to write this. I began writing this last night as I was listening. To play it quietly, sit back as I try and perform an original live Grunge Bible podcast post on air. This is because at the time, this is what it was all about, right? Hearing music and writing, trying to put words together to articulate the feelings. So, it just seems that everyone remembers the bands that they listened to growing up. And if you asked where your music journey started, you might just say from your parents and say they showed me Led Zeppelin or U2 or Aretha Franklin. So I just always listened to them. Or maybe you remember the radio always playing those certain songs, and it just kind of like comes back to the time that it was popular. But then there's a section of music that your parents didn't listen to, and it wasn't popular enough to be on the radio. Maybe just one song they had was normal enough to be a commercial success, and you probably were shown that song or that band from your best friend whose brother had really good music taste, or the cousin of a friend who were 2 grades ahead of you and they were in college, or they went to school in Nashville or somewhere out west, and you could trust them. They had good music, but the bands at the time that we're talking about were young, and you kind of felt an ownership behind them, and you kind of felt like they had their career ahead of them, and you don't know why, but they're a little off the beaten path, so you found this comfort with them that is just hard to explain. And I think when we talk about a lot of these older bands, the target audience of grunge and whatnot, I think this is kind of what they feel is kind of like their music to their generation. So, Modest Mouse, they're weird. It's a new sound. It's a new sound for the time, but kept going back to them, and they popped up randomly for important moments in my life. And without understanding these moments, they just developed weight over time, right? And it's not perfect. The guitars are out of tune. He's yelling again. He's talking about roads and walls or insects and telephone poles. And I don't know. It's just real. I don't even know what that means, but come on. We all know what it means. It's just real. It's cathartic. Let your hair down. Let the dishes sit for a moment. Have a messy bed. It's all right. No one cares. We don't want to be perfect. But then you hear him play it out. And as an out of tune, chaotic melody presents itself, now you're 5 miles down the road. And what you seems like for the first time in forever, you were present just for a minute, normally bound up with tension and anxiety, but finally you just were. It was just 5 minutes, 5 miles, and you just sat. And, maybe a 30-minute drive to work isn't so bad. Maybe the bus ride isn't a bad thing. Waiting in line is a privilege. You can conquer all the in-between, because life is about the in-betweens. There's a lot of them. And Modest Mouse has taught me that, they have a whole damn song called Ohio, the in-between, right? And at the end of the day, I think Modest Mouse is just a very influential band, blending styles of alternative art rock, And I can say with confidence that Isaac Brock belongs in the same conversation of the Thurston Moores, the Jay Mascis, the Pavements, the Pixies, Built to Spill, Sonic Youth, Francis Black. He was the next gen. They brought this sense of longing, thoughtfulness, dread, and confusion that someone goes through, but it's not the black and white emotion. It's more vague. Can you be more vague? They're all the equivalent of when your friend asks you, "How are you, man?" And they respond, "I don't know, man. It's just all a lot, And you just exhale and say, "Yeah, man, I know exactly what you mean." And at the beginning, it's abstract, but it makes you feel some type of way. So you stick with it. Now it's been 20 or 30 years, and those songs and sounds bring back memories and ideas, etc. And the impact of the first few albums are just a little bit more clear. They're not as vague as they once were. So you see a path that it led the band, and you see a path that it led all the followers. And it's just, there's a great appreciation for the art behind the madness that is Isaac Brock and Jeremiah Green and the boys of, Modest Mouse. And they've had a lot of people play with them over the years. So I don't know, man. Maybe that's the point,
Yeah. That's I think anybody that's listening to that, if they're a Modest Mouse fan, that's going to verbalize all of the feelings that they have about this band, because it just did that for me in real time. And I didn't know what you had written until you just read it now. That's exactly what it is. Isaac Brock is such a special songwriter. And I made a post recently too about how I really think that he should be discussed, alongside all of the great American songwriters. Like, he has this thing where, he's just able to write about what it means to grow up in this place, in the States, and find your way, or maybe not find your way, and, everything along the way. I think a lot of times when people look for meaning in songwriting and meaning in songs in general, we kind of have this tendency to want it to kind of be tidy and be easily understood. And, you can listen to a song and 3.5 minutes later, you're like, I get it. I know what they're talking about. But life's not like that. It's not 3 minutes and then you figure out all your problems. And it's not you sit down for, 20 minutes and, know what you want to do or know where you want to go. And their whole music and their whole career has just kind of been a case study of that it's not that simple. And it doesn't have to be. There's kind of an earned experience there, that comes from being from embodying and being within that uncertainty and not really knowing what's going on or who you are or where you're going to go or who you want to be. And I think they capture that, and their music captures that in a way that I don't think any other group has for me. And I don't think any other group has for a lot of people. And that's why we always come back to this music. And that's why I think, the chaos of the way the instruments sound is an asset for them. And the chaos with which his vocal phrasing comes out is an asset for them. And, the meandering albums that go on for maybe a little too long is an asset for them. And it's just this perfect, it's this cohesive example of how life isn't cohesive a lot of times. And they've been able to capture that feeling that I think we all experience at different points. For some of us, it comes when we're 13. For some of us, it comes when, we're 18 and we get out of high school. Some of us, it's during college, and some of us, it's a random Tuesday when we're 26. But, it comes for us all at one point or another. And this band's always there and ready to kind of hold your hand through that.
Yeah, it just seems like, it happens often, right? They kind of come into play here and there. Like, I remember, it was a similar story, as a friend who showed me a song, or it may have been Float On, and then all of a sudden you like want to listen to some more, and then all of a sudden, because they have, one song makes the radio, Float On, and then you get into them and they're totally different. Mm-hmm. They're older stuff, and I just like looking back at the time that it was coming out in '96. I mean, these guys were all really young writing, and Isaac, his lyrics, and we'll get into it. Like, there's a lot of ways to break this down. Like, his lyricism is awesome. I mean, the music side of it is like really obscure, but also really comes together at times and just makes this, like you said, beautiful, imperfect, sound and jam that a lot of artists, won't attempt to do. But there is a genre of music that we talked about a little bit that, they're really heavily influenced by Built to Spill, and they played with them, and that's another band that has this entire vibe as well. Yeah. And like I said, there's just so many moments where of transitions in my life where I find peace in listening to Modest Mouse, because Isaac doesn't make it seem like we need to have it all put together and figured out, and you don't know who you are and you don't know where you're going, but that's a lot of us. That's life, and there's a lot of comfort in that. And I love the out of tune stuff, and because then like I said, it all of a sudden a melody presents itself, and it's like there's some awesome jams like throughout this whole album, throughout this whole discography, and they're just they just offer. There's just so much. There's so much. The bag is so big, right? That you get into it and you have no idea what song is going to speak and when, because they all have beautiful elements to it. I don't know. I feel like there's a higher approval rating when I show people or I talk about Modest Mouse. Usually people are like, yeah, man, they're a really good band. They probably they're definitely like, people won't get deep all the time with them, but like it's there if you want to. And usually people, I feel like people are on the side of rooting for them, I guess, which is good.
Absolutely. Because I think like, you can always, at one point or another, you can see your current self or see your past self portrayed in this music, or at least the feelings that come from this music. And that's what it's always felt for me. I mean, we were talking about this when we decided to do this record. This album was huge for us, 5-6 years ago. And, you had just kind of moved to Birmingham and you were starting that chapter of your life. And I had just moved back home and I was figuring out like what I wanted to do, like where I wanted to live, what my job was going to look like, what I wanted my hobbies to be, who was going to be in my life, all of those things. And they were a companion throughout all that. They're still a companion for all those moments of uncertainty. Because too, like, we talk about this a lot. And, if you're of a certain age, you'll understand this as well, that, when you're in high school, you're in college, like all of your objectives and goals are at most like a couple of months away, right? Like you're studying for this test, like you can't wait for spring break, which is like 3 weeks away. You've got your summer plans. Well, summer's only a couple of months long. Like how far in the future can you really look? And then when you graduate, from high school or college or whatever, you identify with a different set of goals. Maybe, you want to, earn this promotion, or you want to start a family, or you want to, move into this house or something. All of those goals take a really long time to get to, in a way that when you're a kid, your goals in your life isn't lived that with an eye that far into the future. And this is they make the perfect music for the time in between where you are right now and whatever your goals might be. Because, I think about people like, for jobs, for example, you get a performance review once a year. So like what's happening the other 11 months and 3 weeks out of the year, you're just waiting for that moment. Like you got to live in the middle and in that uncertainty, and you got to live when you're working towards something or when you're not working towards something. And their music's always been a reminder that, you got to have goals, but your life is made whole by everything that happens outside of that, and even the mundane things. And like, a dumb Friday where like you're sitting with your friend in a mostly empty bar or something, or you're just like shooting texts back and forth about music with your friend. That's the stuff that I think is just as important as having the bigger goals. And in a way that not many other bands or musicians have done for me, they solidify that. It's funny too, right around the time that we started getting into Modest Mouse in a big way, we got into Petey in a big way, and Petey was heavily influenced by Isaac Brock, and you can see that completely. And I would say, those are the Petey and Modest Mouse, Isaac Brock, like those are the two factions that I think have done that for me in a way that nobody else really has.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're both, similar and influenced by each other, at least, Petey by Isaac. And yeah, I found myself, yesterday, like I'm walking around, I just wish that, either I was having a beer with you or another friend. I was like, I wish someone was there, but obviously I just had to do it solo. So I just had plenty of time to think and go through everything. And it's just this wave of nostalgia. It's just nonstop wave of nostalgia with this band. And, I think that's I just the genre that they play has that for me, like kind of like the just out of tune and kind of like you said, the schizo type of music of alternative rock in the 90s and indie rock in the 90s. And they were, very much indie, and just like obscure. And like that always, I don't know if it was just more of my personality when I was growing up but I was always drawn to that. And, it's fun. It's fun to have them. Like I said, I feel like I've grown up with them, and like, I feel there's an allegiance to the bands that you listened to when you were younger. And even more so, like obviously we have the classic rock and the old heads that we, liked when we were younger. But then, if if Isaac Brock was, born in 75, he's 51, I think. So, 20 years ago when we were 10 or 12, like, he's how old we are now. So right. I just feel a connection with the people that are basically like, 10, 15 years older than me making music back then. Like, it's just a perfect time for me to like really, I don't know, be connected to it. So
yeah, 100%. And you kind of develop that allegiance. I think, there's a couple of periods of life where I think whatever you were listening to at the time, you're always going to be a fan of. And it's the stuff that, when you were a teenager, when you're in high school and you're learning music, the classics, like you said, from your parents, like you learn that stuff and you're always going to have a soft spot for that. But then like that first crop of bands that you find on your own ostensibly.
Yeah.
Those are always going to be your bands, right? Those first bands that when you're getting into the weeds when you're 22 or something, and maybe one of your college buddies shows it to you. Like there's that next crop of bands that you're always going to identify with, and they paint the soundtrack for some of the most significant choices that you make and some of the most significant moments in your life. And Modest Mouse is one of those bands for me, and especially this record. I think for me, it starts with the title of this album. This is a long drive for someone with nothing to think about. And, you and I both went to college quite a ways away from where we were born and where we grew up. And, from just about the time that we could drive, we were taking these long drives and going to school or visiting friends and stuff. And it's a long way out there. And I think if you've traveled, across this country of ours, you develop a fascination with how much space there is between stuff. And, it's a long way between things, as we were talking last week on the Queens episode, maybe in the Southwest. But, this album just kind of ties in so well with me, having to navigate the Midwest, living in Iowa and coming back east or going back out west for the start of another semester. And, that openness lends yourself to thinking about things. And it certainly did that with this band. And speaking of the origins of this band, as you said, they're from Washington. And they have their origins in the early 90s with Isaac Brock, Jeremiah Green, and Eric Judy, who are the central three components of this band. Brock on guitar and vocals, the late Jeremiah Green drumming, and Eric Judy playing bass guitar. And as the story goes, Isaac Brock was working at a video store just outside of Seattle, and he met Eric Judy, and they started hanging out and whatnot. And then they end up meeting Jeremiah Green at a concert, and the trio decides to make music together. And that process begins, and they get hooked up with a couple of different people, namely Calvin Johnson and Steve Wold, who was 20 years, give or take, their senior at the time, ended up kind of being a musical mentor for them. And he's contributing quite a few different musical parts to this record itself. But it's just a process of that. They're playing the indie scene, they're touring, they're making music, and then they end up getting signed to Up Records, which released this album on April 16th of 1996, as we mentioned. And the interesting thing too, prior to this, they had released an EP that they put out with the help of Calvin Johnson, and they also had recorded an album prior to this called "Sad Sappy Sucker," which never saw the light of day until 2001. So this was the first kind of extended release that they had put out, and I think this set the tone for the band in terms of like the first stuff that was really available for you to hear from them. And I think it informs kind of where they go, especially you think about some of their other albums like The Lonesome Crowded West and whatnot, Building Something Out of Nothing, for example, as well. Like, it all starts here, and it comes from that place where they're coming from too. As you said, they didn't want to be known as a Seattle band, and they made the decision to kind of choose to be known as hailing from Issaquah, Washington, which is obviously not Seattle proper. And it just kind of lends itself to that, space in between things. And, you're not coming from the city, and there's more time to think about things when you're outside of the city. And they certainly were able to capture that feeling on this record.
Yeah. And they there's stories, they sent that first EP to Sub Pop, and they denied it. They didn't want to work with them. So then Isaac said that Up Records was just upstairs in the building. So he said he went up a couple floors and dropped it off at the guy Chris at Up Records, and he loved it immediately. And like I said, Built to Spill was on that record label as well. So it's no surprise that they really enjoyed the music and wanted to kind of see it through. And this album, as we talked about, it's 74 minutes on the vinyl. It's actually like 80
86 minutes.
86.
There's 2 more tracks that made the vinyl release that didn't make the other releases. And kind of framing this conversation. So on the anniversary, I made a post about it on the page, and a comment that I really loved that I ended up pinning. Somebody said, "It was years before I knew any of the tracks' names, as this was an album that played straight through, no skips, just repeat the entire album." And that's how you have to listen to Modest Mouse, in my opinion. So like yesterday, you and I both sat down at home, to listen to this album. You made a fire and just sat outside and listened, and that's what you were doing. And I was sitting in my living room and I started playing. I had a hockey game or something on TV, and I was like, I gotta get away from this. So I just pulled up a chair by my front window, cracked a beer, and just sat and looked out the window as the sun set and things got dark all around, and just listened to the music. And it lends itself well to those moments, just as it does when you're driving. You got a hand on the wheel and you're just going wherever it is that you're going, and you need the time to sit with this one because it is long, and you notice different things as you listen through. And there's so many songs. I mean, there's 16 tracks on the standard release, and there's 18 on the vinyl release. There's a lot of different sounds going on here. There's a lot of different points, and the lyrics are so heavy-handed and meandering and stream of consciousness, which once again, as I was saying earlier, a lot of times we want music to be super tidy, but like that's not how our brains work. Our brains are meandering, and our brains are stream of consciousness. And they had this ability that they were able to kind of capture that in a way that felt genuine, in a way that works along with the way that they're playing their instruments, which is really cool. And I don't think it's a particularly easy thing to do.
Yeah, it's not, and I think they do a really good job of using like auxiliary sounds and auxiliary tempos, and definitely Jeremiah Green, he's an awesome drummer.
Yes.
And it's
he
really
holds this
sad.
whole thing together.
He holds this whole thing together, but like you can tell that they didn't and you can probably fact check me because I don't know if it's true or not, but there's no way that he used the metronome. They used the metronome.
I can't imagine. They certainly weren't doing anything like that when they play live. I mean, you watch videos of Modest Mouse live at clubs in the mid to late 90s, and I don't think the guitars are ever in tune. I don't think everything's ever on time or in tempo. But that's like, as I said, that's an asset for them, and that elevates their music. And I think these are the type of songs that can't be fundamentally sound in that regard, because what they're singing about isn't fundamentally sound, just like our brains aren't in that way. It's not as tidy, and this is just music for real people with real things going on that are living real lives.
Yeah, I really do love that that comment saying like I didn't know any of the track titles, and I totally agree with that, and feel that in my deep in my veins, because I know I've listened to like all of the albums and whatnot, but like the songs, other than like the big ones that that are a little bit more polished, that get radio time, Ocean Breeze Salty and Dramamine and Float On and whatnot. The other ones, like they all hold this, they hold this ground where like, when you listen to them, like, I know this song, like I know it's coming, but then like you see that the title is like Exit Does Not Exist, and you're like, I didn't know that was the title at all.
I'll remember
like,
parts. I'll remember specific jams or maybe a lyric or two, but it's difficult for me sometimes to attribute it to the correct song, because for me, and it's funny because I'm usually super type A about this stuff. I'm like, this is on this track and I remember it. I'm not that way with this band. I just put it on, and when I was preparing for this episode, I usually have my notes out and I go song by song and write my notes as the songs play. I didn't even find myself doing that. I just listened to the whole thing as a complete project. And then my thoughts are kind of more about the project itself. And then, it's illuminated by the specific parts that I remember. And it's interesting. Like I said, this type of music that challenges you to maybe listen in a different way than what you're accustomed to. And, for example, if you're a lyrics forward person, the music on this record is going to draw your attention. And if you're a music forward person, I think there's certainly parts and certainly lyrics that are going to draw your attention away from that. So just kind of gets you thinking about things differently.
Yeah. So as we like to do, or it seemed to be a theme, we kind of give the pitchfork review, the critical review as it was coming, and Chrissy posted this here, so I think it's worth reading. So Pitchfork gave this a 6.8 out of 10, and it says, Modest Mouse have got to be the first band in history whose members had the personalities of the criminally insane and lyrics that appear completely stream of consciousness, but songs that don't lack sense or feeling. The first song on the disc is called Dramamine, in which a quiet electric guitar opens with a simple 2-string repetition while the drums kick softly away in the background. In a few seconds, another guitar with a distant reverb enters and follows into an intricate second parts. It sounds like a road trip through the deserts of Nevada around dusk. It's a very spacious, wide-open feeling. The song is mostly instrumental, but for a brief moment, there are lyrics. They add the elements of incredible speed and the occasional bump of the unevenly paved road. The band shows strong influences from the Pixies and Jane's Addictions, but they've also got their own personal style that is unlike anything I've ever heard before. The only problem with this record is that it's impossible to get all the way through it because it's over 70 minutes long, and the vinyl version actually has more songs. There are a few bands that can pull that off, and honestly, Modest Mouse is not one of them, but I guess they've got the studio time, a little extra music, never hurt anybody. And when I read this, I'm like, yeah, that's probably somebody's gut reaction. I'd like to hear the review now. And this is what I was kind of talking about earlier, because yeah, first time getting a band, like, wow, this is a really long album. Or, I don't know if Modest Mouse is, the band to do something like this. But, fast forward 25 years later, it's like Modest Mouse is the band that, created this in a way. Like they created the meandering and, exactly what this guy described. And I bet you, his review is different with the lens of what they've done in their career and how they've influenced other bands. And yeah, like I said, I can imagine the first time listening. You have to have some, some gumption and some you have to have some courage to really wave the flag of a new band who is coming and doing something differently. I mean, that's not easy to do unless you're just trying to be seen, which, probably happens more now, but back then if your job was on the line, you can't just promote bad stuff. But this is, like I said, this aged really well, and I think that I'm glad that we have all the songs we do on this album, because really there is a no skip album. Like it's a lot to get through, of course. Like when you get 100 an hour and 10 minutes is tough to have to dedicate to music, but like if you have a long drive and nothing to think about, this is a great album.
This is the one. And it's funny too. So that Pitchfork review that you read came out shortly after the record was released, and they gave it a 6.8. But then they re-reviewed it in 2014.
There we go.
And they updated the rating to an 8.5. So there once again, Modest Mouse is one of those bands. Like you got to give it time. And if
do you have
cherry
it in front of you?
Songs? No, I don't actually. I just had a note about the.
I'd like to find that afterwards and read it to see, because I'm not surprised that they bumped it almost 2 points. That's huge.
Absolutely. And I think you spend time with it, and you got this is a record you have to develop history with. Like you have to kind of be an active participant while you're listening to it. And that's something that I think people don't do as much as they used to before, because they might not have the time. And certainly, our attention spans are not what they once were. And, if you have more responsibility, you don't have 75 minutes to sit down and listen to a record. But, I think you have to with this band. You kind of have to just sit, and they're perfect road trip music. And they kind of, that Pitchfork review zeroed in on Dramamine, the first song, and it starts right from the jump, obviously. And I think the record is incredibly cohesive in the way that it sounds, and it's interesting to have it validated by somebody who was there at the time saying that, hey, this doesn't sound like anything that I've heard before. And certainly you can tell the proof's in the pudding too, because so many bands have come on that have tried to embody this atmosphere and embody this style in a way that is not as perfect as the way that Modest Mouse does it, because they kind of created this thing. And it's not often that we're at ground zero of a style, and we have the ability to do that with this band kind of being here at the start.
Yeah, they definitely have their own genre. Just as we talk about, like, Pink Floyd is a genre, and the Grateful Dead and the Smashing Pumpkins, like, exactly what we're talking about when you say Modest Mouse, like, you know what you're listening to. And Dramamine is that's their, one of their top songs, and it's their debut song on their debut album, and it really is a beautiful song. It is probably one of the first songs that I got into. If I remember correctly, is this the song that got you into it? And I feel like, I admit we had talked about it, but I have this recollection that our friend Brandon Amo was the guy who told you to listen to Modest Mouse. Am I going crazy?
He loved Float On, and I remember like early on in this page, like he hit me up. He's like, "Yo, like you gotta put some Modest Mouse on there." And I had a moment where I was like, "I'm sorry, I was not familiar with your game." And then parallel to that, we were starting to have the conversations about different music, and then we start kind of back and forth with music and sharing stuff, and I found my way back to This Is a Long Drive for someone with nothing to think about. But yeah, you are correct in that.
I remember like sitting in my small room and you telling me like, I don't know if you just sent me a picture.
Yo, Amo likes Modest Mouse.
I for some reason Amo told me to listen to this, and now like here's 6 different lyrics from 7 songs that I love, and I was just like, too, so. And it was one of those things where I was like, wow, it was like it was one of the first bands that like I had held close to my heart that all of a sudden you were coming around to, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And it came from Amo. It's so funny.
My phone background has been the album artwork for This Is a Long Drive for probably 5 or 6 years at this point. Like it's just my default. It's like this is my background now, and it's happened like once or twice that my phone's been out and somebody's seen it and they'd be like, Modest Mouse? I'm like, yeah, man, that's what it is. Once again, like, I made a post I posted talking shit about a Pretty Sunset, and in the caption I made I made it a point that, if you understand, like, you don't even have to read any of this, like you know the point that I'm going to try to make about this music. And this is one of those bands that for those who know, and there's just a kindred understanding there.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's funny because I was writing this and thinking about this, and then I saw what you posted and you wrote, and I was like, dang, this is like a lot of the similar things that I was going to bring to the table on the podcast episode. And it's just like you said, when you know, and I'm like, there's a stream of consciousness here that Isaac is talking about, and we're all thinking it. So
yeah, and it's every single song on this record. We're talking about Dramamine, like it kind of has that like lullaby up and down kind of melody to it, and then you kind of even get to I'm in heaven with this episode just because of all of the lyrics, and I love honing in on lyrics. I mean, even the second song, Breakthrough, I love those lyrics. Open the curtain and let in some sky. It's almost 2:30 a.m. You can tell by the light. Open your window and let in the atmosphere. And I mean, I think that's a perfect reminder for everybody. I mean, I reach points in my day where I loathe my behavior sometimes because I'm like, man, like it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a beautiful day. And like, how much time have I spent just staring down at my phone screen? And I remember when I was prepping for this, I was pulling lyrics to talk about and break through those lyrics of like, open the window and let in the atmosphere kind of really kicked me in the pants. I was like, hey, dude, you gotta put the phone away sometimes. And we said earlier in the year, 2026 is going to be a big year for turning off the phone. So it's about time I continue to back that up.
It's funny because the same thing for me. I was like, I was sitting down. I was like, I gotta do some notes. And then I was like, sun setting, and I was like, man, I just gotta go outside and be in the moment with this because. And then it's like you go outside, it's like, wow, I almost missed this moment because I was too caught up in just like you said, just loathing your whatever you're doing. And I just like, the lyrics, and like I said, we could literally go song by song and read each one because, Isaac was totally, I mean, he's a, I guess a bookworm, and, you can tell he's read a lot, and he writes in the form of poems all the time. Like these are just like straight poems that he put some music over the back. And there's always something profound in there that you really enjoy.
Brian Sella of the Front Bottoms is kind of like this as well. Like I kind of think of them in the same solar system as it relates to music. Just kind of, if you took, you don't need the music to get the weight of the lyrics. And I love the fact that when you wrote what you read earlier, you were listening to Custom Concern. Because for me on this record, the third song, like that's where I really kind of get into. How this band and how this album has served me, kind of getting into it when I was, out of college. I had changed careers and I was trying to figure out what my career was going to be. I love those lyrics. I get up just about noon. My head sends a message for me to reach for my shoes and then walk. Gotta go to work, gotta have a job. And that's just kind of the perfect, example of how he writes for people that are just, you got people that are just in the world, because everybody's life is significant because somebody's living that life. And, you know, whatever lofty goals or ambitions you had at one time or have at the time, or people's expectations for you, you know, we're all living every single moment that we're alive. And there's a lot of mundane moments in there. And he just kind of gives voice to that feeling of being in the mundane.
Yeah. And this is the third song on the album. The first, like I said, the first one's got this got a nice upbeat and it's like a little more polished. Second one's pretty chaotic. And then this is where you get into like the soft, you know, soft melodic kind of poetry type stuff, like
Empty
really
Space is in this one.
Empty Space, yeah, and I've seen a lot of people. Obviously, people like the hits, and sometimes like the chaotic stuff is a little bit too much. But like, I think it's pretty well known that if you can get into the slower stuff, like this is some of the best music you're going to hear, because
100%.
They do not have a problem really breaking it down and just having like a shaker and a bass drum and like a few guitar hits, as Isaac Brock talks about. gotta get up, you know, gotta have a job, and it's just it's so good.
Yeah. Message read on the bathroom wall said, "I don't feel at all like I fall, and we're losing all touch, building a desert." And then with Custom Concern too, you have that really pretty instrumental outro where I love it. You know, the lyricist will drop a bomb on you and get you thinking about everything that you've ever chosen in your life. And then you have, you know, a minute and a half at the end of the song to kind of sit with those thoughts and begin to parse through them. Yeah.
It's, like that's a lost art.
You know, you got to do that.
The outros are so good. And like, and it's different than just like jams. Like when you hear a jam and it's all about crescendos, like this is just like, it's like 2 or 3 minutes attached to like 5 or 6 of these songs where it's just like let you kind of go with what you have, go with your thoughts, go with either what he gave you or where your mind took you yourself.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's bands that Dinosaur Jr. does this for me too. I'll be listening to them and like his voice is always like, it's like high pitched and kind of whiny, and like, and all of a sudden he cuts out and they just play.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, like it sucks me in every time, these bands. And it's so beautiful. And then obviously they have crescendos and they come down, but like sometimes it's just like it doesn't move. It's just like a heartbeat and it just like plays, and it's so beautiful.
And Ethan, when we get into albums, a lot of times we harp on the deployment of loud and soft side by side and where they choose to do that. And, you know, that's here on this record, but it's not even loud versus soft. It's just kind of chaos versus serenity, because, you know, you go to the 4th track with Might and you just kind of got, you know, you had that nice kind of calm outro to Custom Concern, and then Might is just like this cacophony of sound, and it's super chaotic, and it's just kind of all over the place, and Isaac's singing in a little bit of a higher register with a little bit more sting behind the words that he's singing. You know, Jeremiah Green's drumming is like super high tempo on this one too, and it's just kind of that juxtaposition is really cool. And somebody commented on the anniversary post that I made, they commented lyrics to the song Might. Once again, I mean, you could do a lecture on any of these individual lyrics, but I love this one. "I might and you might, but neither of us do though, and neither of us will. I broke every bone in my goddamn jaw. That's a lot. It's the last one I ever got." Yeah.
So good. So good. And yeah, that's a short one too, right? That's all packed into
minute and a half.
Yeah, man, I broke every bone in my goddamn jaw. That's a lot. It's the last one I ever got. Oh, it's good. And then, you know, it goes into Lounge is the next one. And this song has, again, just an awesome second half. I mean, the first half is good too, but the second half is just, you know, like 3 or 4 minutes of like really low and just like hear violins and yeah, just strings, and it's just like a special soundscape to tap into and to get to. And it's really nice when the violins because they're always in tune.
Yeah,
and, it's a nice little bright spot.
Violinists
in there.
Don't play out of tune. Isaac Brock does though.
Yeah, 100%. It's always a pleasure to go through. And like I said, you can go on every album and all of a sudden you find these gems, because these songs are not the big ones, and
they can be overlooked
ones.
Exactly.
They're like I said, they're hard to like remember. Like, where was that 3-minute jam? It was in the back end of Lounge. Yeah, like it's definitely hard to keep track. So listening through the album, you're just like boom, another one, up, yep, another one, and you get locked into different mindsets throughout. It's a good journey.
Beachside Property is very similar to that. I mean, both of these songs are over 6.5 minutes long. And this is, the first two songs, I think, where you really kind of get a feel for how Isaac Brock plays the guitar when he's soloing and when he's kind of noodling around. It's so unique to Isaac, and the guitar tone that he employs is really, really cool too. And it just comes back time and time again, because once again, I mean, with this record being so long, they give themselves the time to noodle around and meander. And it just kind of serves the point that they're making with the lyrics as well. So there's a really, really good level of cohesion here between music and word.
Yeah, exactly. This song, I don't even know, man. It's just they are really all good, and I find myself enjoying each one of them at a different level every time it plays. It's hard to pick an order,
It's really challenging, and I think it's really challenging to even discuss these in a song by song form because of the way that we listen to it, right? I've listened to this album front to back countless times throughout my life, but I'm never really paying attention to, as I said, like what track I'm on and what part is in which song, and then just different things kind of stick out to you. But it is difficult, but that's the cool part, because you can spend so much time with this record, and there's still the unmined areas of the record where it's like, I don't ever recall really noticing anything from this track. So like, let me like really zero in on this one and see what I gather from it. And that even happened with me, last night when I was listening. It didn't happen to me with every single track because there's just so much there. But even as we kind of go down to the 10th track, Novocaine Stain, which is not really one that I spent much time listening to. I love the lyrics here. Interchanges, plazas, and malls, in crowded chain restaurants. More housing developments go up, named after the things they replace. So welcome to Minnow Brook, and welcome to Shady Space. Well, it all seems a little abrupt. No, I don't like this change of pace. And like, that's as perfect of a critique and an explanation as to like how Western society has moved, from the 80s into the 90s into the new century, and time and time again, the apartment buildings and old houses get torn down, and there's this mixed use strip mall that's named after, what used to be on the corner there, and nobody remembers what's on the corner there. They just remember that's the name of the new place. And that's just part of growing up too, the change of the pace of your life as well. That's something I think about all the time, because I think for me, as I've gotten older, and as I'm finishing off my 20s here in the last few months, like I've really realized like how not in control I am of the pace of things that happen in my life. And as much as you take ownership and you set your goals and you set your sights and you work towards things, like most of life is kind of how you respond to the things that happen to you or happen around you. And that's a really, really big lesson that I think, as the control freak that I am, like I've had to learn and be okay with and grow to be okay with. And, Modest Mouse's music once again reminds me that happens with everything all the time. And it's not because I'm doing anything wrong. It's just the way things go, and you have to inhabit it and still find the light amidst that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really good way to put it. Yeah. Things definitely are always changing, and it's like, I mean, when things are kind of steady, time moves by really fast. And when things are, when you're more unsure, I think you start taking notice of everything, and you start having, worries that you didn't know existed, because everything's under a microscope. And like I said, I'm in I feel like one of those periods right now. I just, finished my time in Alabama, and it seemed like that, it feels like I just moved there, right? And, you remember when you get to college or when you leave to college, and the actual college,
like what happened in between. Gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something, Ethan, like, I want to get your thoughts on this, but like, that's something that as a person, like, I'm kind of afraid of, because how many times you hear somebody in their 50s or 60s and they always tell you, it goes by so much faster than you think, and, you blink your eyes. And something that I've developed a little bit of a fear of is just kind of like sleepwalking through my 20s or sleepwalking through my 30s. And it's like, yeah, like I'm living day to day, but the old adage of like the days are long, but the months and the years go by, they're really, really short. And, you kind of wake up, and I don't know that there's anything you can do to avoid that. I think that's just the way that time works. And, the fact that it felt like it went by fast isn't an indictment, I think, of how you chose to spend your time. It's just the way that it is. But I think about that sometimes, and I kind of get worried, like, am I really like making the most of this time? Because it does go by quickly, and we've noticed that the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and Isaac Brock writes about that exact thing like 10 times.
Yeah, I mean, even the next song, Tundra Desert, every child star wonders if they have a future up ahead, you know? Like,
yeah.
Existentialism is everywhere on this record, man.
Oh, dude, absolutely everywhere. And like I said, I just picked the song Ohio the other day.
Peak Modest Mouse right here.
Yeah, just, you know, it's just a really
Ohio.
Yeah, exactly. But the lyrics, like, it's just like if you take the music out from behind it, it's just a poem. You know, he's like, truly sorry, I see clearly, calmly crashing. I pace faster than anyone. Hinges rusting, they swing louder than anything. Truly lonely, this place is flatter than it seems. I'm upset and I leave the door open wide. Our hearts are used up, cracked and dry. Pulled the scabs off of regrets. We haven't learned to read our conscience yet. You know, and there's, you know, a couple more verses, but like,
yeah,
I just, you know, it's just a poem, you know, that he wrote, and it's awesome. I love it. Truly lonely, this place is flatter than it seems.
Yeah.
It's like the wide open is scary, and like you said, it's super flat.
Yeah.
There's not a lot going on.
That's also canonically accurate about the state of Ohio, as people who have driven through it many times over the course of our lives. Somehow it is flatter than it seems. I mean, shit, I went to school in Iowa, and you could say that about the entire Midwest, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's different out there. But this whole thing is just a songwriting masterclass. I mean, even the next song, Exit Does Not Exist. I love those lyrics. I hear voices insinuating, feeds me lyrics to this song that I am saying. Sunlight, 7:20 p.m., early September, standing looking at a photograph that you do not remember being taken. You look out of breath and me like I am faking. As a matter of fact, I don't recall this photo being taken. Like, stream of consciousness, man.
I know, man. It's stream of consciousness. It's so great. And then you know, that's taking us to our final three songs, which like are
the highlight of the record for me.
The heavy hitting. Yeah, this is like the heavy hitters. And easily
you do a philosophy course just on these three songs, man.
Yeah, and it's really good that it is at the end of the album, because just like the outro, every song with a nice little jam, like, you know, these two songs are both over, you know, almost 6 minutes long each. One's 5:50, talking shit about a pretty sunset, and then the last song is actually the outro. It's under 2 minutes. You know, Space Travel is boring.
Yeah,
and I don't even. Yeah, like, I mean, they're so complete, and it has the perfect guitar work, like that Modest Mouse can bring, whether it be a solo or kind of like the bridges where it's just like really like picking. Mm-hmm. It's like a, you know, that it's not a dobro or slide guitar, but it almost sounds like he's picking this like this steel guitar. You know, it doesn't even sound like, you know, the sound you're going to get out of your guitar,
right?
And then it just has this like beautiful builds and kind of like I said, there's just like weird cohesion with sounds that you wouldn't really put together. And that's what makes them brilliant, because they can make beautiful soundscapes out of things that, you know, are a little bit harder. It's like, it's like those people that make art out of trash. You know, they take all of the extra trash. Or, you know, I was just at a conference too, and they were talking about trash artists, and it's like, if you look at it, it's just a pile of trash, but then they shine a light on it, and the shadow is the artwork. Have you seen those?
That's really cool. I haven't seen that. That's an interesting concept.
It's actually unreal. It's like you look at it and you're just like, wow. Or if you look at it one way, but then you walk over and you look at it directly at the same spot, it's like two people sitting back to back. And it is like, it's amazing. It's beautiful.
That's
beautiful
super cool.
stuff.
And I have to say,
this art is.
Talking Shit About a Pretty Sunset is my favorite Modest Mouse song, bar none. And the amount of times that I've listened to this, I mean, you know, I've told a couple people before that, like, late night Modest Mouse is going to happen. Like, it's an inevitability. And that happened to us last night. Like, I was up, it was my one free night to sleep in. And like, I stayed up until like 2:30 in the morning, just like listening to music, doing whatever. But this song, man, and I claim I'm not excited with my life anymore. So I blame this town, this job, these friends. The truth is it's myself. and I'm trying to understand myself and pinpoint who I am. When I finally get it figured out, I've changed the whole damn plan. And there was like a 2-year period of my life, man, where that exactly exemplified what I was feeling. And, you know, you're trying your hardest, and like, it's not for a lack of trying, not for a lack of effort. And like, you know, as soon as you kind of think you got it figured out, it's like, this is where I want to go, or like, you know, I'm interested in this job, or this is what I want to do. You know, your tastes change and what you want changes. And like, there's a bit of self-loathing that can come with that, I think. And it's just like, you know, you always look for what the reason is. It's like, oh man, you know, if I could just get out of this apartment and move into a better one, like things are going to be better. Or like, you know, if I could just like work for this different person, or, you know, if I could just, you know, squat 500 pounds for the first time, everything's going to be fine. But you know, it all kind of happens in between your own ears. And, you know, I think, as I said earlier, their music like reminds me that like feeling that way at times it's not a defect. I think it's just a feature of life. And, you know, further on in the song, talking shit about a pretty sunset, blanketing opinions that I'll probably regret soon, changed my mind so much that I can't even trust it. My mind changed me so much I can't even trust myself. And
I was about to read those if you didn't. Like,
oh yeah, dude. And like, I've had, as I was telling you, like I had a couple. I first moved into this place 5 years ago. I had a couple. You know, you go out, you know, with your friends in the town, you come home a little drunk, and have a nice stoop night. And a couple stoop nights I just sat and listened to Modest Mouse, and this song particularly, just kind of thinking about that. And in a way, like somebody identifying the way that you feel about things, not only does it make you feel like you're not alone, but it makes you feel that it's okay to feel that way. Because a lot of times when you're concerned about that, or you kind of feel like a fuck up, you're like, I'm the only one who's felt this way, and you know, these problems are unique to me because I have fucked this up in a uniquely specific way that has only happened because of me and my defects. But it happens to everybody, and there's comfort in that, and it kind of, you know, it's okay, and that's just a part of the process of finding your way to wherever you are. And you know, that song, I leaned on that song quite a bit when I was in those periods, and I'm sure it's going to happen again. I'm going to feel that way about something in my life again, and the song will be there for me. And the same thing with the next song, Make Everyone Happy, Mechanical Birds, which we were texting last night, and you know, we kind of pinpointed this as like the crux of the record and the crux of the message behind it and what we gather you know, from this band. And I love those lyrics. And I said, you can't make everybody happy. He said, you'd at least like to make yourself happy, though. I'm not sure who I am. I'm not sure who I am, but I know who I've been.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, it's so good. And this is like lyrically a pretty short song. There's only
there's not much to it.
And they just expand it to, you know, the song that it is. And I guess that's the two part. The first part is makes everyone happy, and then Mechanical Birds are just you know, has to allude to the type of guitar work that's going on.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
the bird chirping outside your room. But yeah, dude, I'm not sure I am, but I know who I've been. That's like the most it's maybe the most real statement that everybody I think struggles with, but may not want to put to light. It's like, I don't know who I'm gonna be, but damn, like, you know, it's like the remember when, like I'm telling these stories, and I'm talking about the times and like what I've done, and you know, maybe you're, you know, you want to keep that persona up, but there's different chapters in life, and you know, it's like, do I move on? Do I start a new chapter? Do I keep with this one? Or, you know, you're always in that conversation.
Too, that harkens back to the thing that you said earlier too, where it's like, you know, how many times like you ask one of your close friends, like, hey man, how are you? I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. In the same way, I'm not sure who I am right now, but I know who I've been. Because I don't know, sometimes it's kind of hard to know who you are in that moment and kind of know, like, you know, what you're about and what's going on. But then as time goes on, the same way 5-6 years ago when I really, really leaned on this record, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know like where I was going, what my life was going to look like. But time goes by and you do your best and you find your way through. And looking back, it's always a little bit more clear than it was at the time. But that's just a part of life. And I think, you know, this band's taught me to appreciate that because that's a huge part of it. It's how you learn.
Yeah. And, you know, hindsight's like, you know, I probably didn't feel this way in my teens or early 20s, but like, you know, looking back, I was like, I was really sure of who I was and what I was doing and where I wanted to go. And, you know, the only thing that's changed is, you know, basically me. Yeah. And now it's like, I know who I was back then, but it's like, yeah, exactly do I want to be moving forward, or I've changed enough where it's like, do I know who I am?
Yeah.
Scary questions.
Yeah, it really is, man. Self-evidently.
This jam though, when it goes and the guitar starts wailing at you.
Absolutely.
It just starts wailing and all of a sudden it breaks and then goes into like this, I don't know, dude. It's just like, I just want to be in the pit so bad for it. Like I can just see myself and just, it's like, talk about an emotional escape.
Yeah, man, you're just with some like-minded people and with a band that brought you, brought that light to you. And I mean, that's how I felt the last 4 Wonder Years shows that I went to last week. And, some of my friends that don't get it, they're like, so you mean to tell me that you saw the same show 4 times in a week? I was like, yeah. Like, why did you do that? Isn't it the same? I was like, well, yeah, it's mostly the same, but there's just something about it, Same thing with this music, those who get it. And there's no explanation that has to happen. Like I'm in the pit in the Wonder Years, and like one of my favorite things is like, you're running around, all that stuff, bumping into people. And then like you end up like getting turned around and like you're singing along to the song. And like, you kind of like, face somebody else and like you sing a line together and like you bro hug and just go on to the next thing. And, there's just an implicit understanding there. And I think that happens very much so with this music as well.
Oh man. Yeah. I love the unspoken, understanding aspect of this music. What you're talking about with the Wonder Years, and obviously you're talking about this band. And like I said, going back to the beginning, this is kind of the band for me or for us, and, Wonder Years are for you. And like I said, they fit that right time zone where they're in their, 40s and 50s. And when we first heard them, and I know that the grunge bands all were that for our listeners and the bands before. And when they talk about them so confidently, or so like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like just with so much, prestige or whatever, just like a lot of care for it. Like I can relate. Like I know where they're coming from, and my experience with the music is different and very close, but it's like, I don't know.
Well, that's why, like, you got to go out and see the shows, because you hear people talk with great reverence about the connection that they had to music in the early 90s. Like, you can find that connection tomorrow at a show with a band that's out there now, and with people that are your age, and you can feel that. I mean, that can be found in so many different places, and that's what keeps me coming back to the music. It's just kind of that search for that feeling, and it can happen by yourself at home at night. It can happen sharing music with friends. It can happen at a show. It can happen anywhere. But that's why you got to keep listening and keep searching.
I think this is the last track, Space Travel is Boring, and you said that this one has moved up your list as far as tight tracks.
It really has. I mean, it's so short. It's less than 2 minutes long, and it hits pretty hard at the beginning with that chaotic guitar, the really, really punchy drums. The bass is involved there as well, and then it just really slows down at the end. And I love the on the standard release without the 2 extra bonus tracks on the vinyl, you have like 15 or 20 seconds of just kind of this like low feedback, which is like the most quiet part of the record, and I think it's the perfect way to kind of send it out. But I love how the chaos here, and then the chorus of Space Travel's Boring kind of just has a really, really good melody to it, and it's just, I think it's a perfect bookend, and I like the lyrics too. Once again, like, I don't know what this means to me specifically or how to verbalize it. I just know that there's a big feeling that I get when I listen to it. Man shot to the moon, I bought a paperback and want to go real soon. I'm shot to the moon, been there a half an hour, I want to come home soon. I don't know how to verbalize what that means to me, but sometimes that's the other thing with Modest Mouse, man. Like I texted you last night, like the band's also taught me sometimes, you feel something big from music, and you immediately want to put a label on it. Like, this makes me feel this way, and you want to articulate it. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you shouldn't even try. You just accept that there's a big feeling there and just kind of sit with that for a little bit. I think you learn more from the feeling than you would just spending your time trying to ascribe words to it. And I think big is an emotion in the way that happy or sad is. So I think Modest Mouse has me feeling big things all the time.
Yeah.
It's a big record.
It's a big record. I agree with that sentiment. Like, it makes you have emotions and feelings that it's hard to put into words. And when you listen to it, you understand, I think, what we're talking about. And I highly recommend listening to this album, giving it a shot. And their music, there's a ton of great music by them, and obviously throughout the years the music has changed. So I did have the opportunity in 2022. They came through Birmingham.
Yeah, you saw them at the brewery, right?
Like, yep, at Avondale. Yeah. Yep, the one you were at. And I was like, man, I need to go see them no matter what. And naturally, no one else could make it. I believe it was actually April 24th, 2022. So almost coming up on my
just about 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the set list right now. So they opened with Dramamine, and the only other song from this album was Custom Concern.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, but we got a lot of them. They had an album just come out. Right. Fuck Your Acid Trip. So it went through, and you get a lot of the new stuff, and honestly, like, it was also a lot of the. There's just a lot of songs that, like, they're hard to really pick out,
Yeah.
Like Never Fuck with a Spider on the Fly, or
it's good advice.
Japanese Tree, but there were some really good ones, and it was one of those where I went to the concert by myself. I stood there and I just watched Isaac Brock play. Yeah. And it was great. It was super cathartic. Like, I wish that I saw them during the 90s, obviously, in the 2000s and whatnot. Jeremiah wasn't playing with them at the time, and it's really sad now. Like, obviously he was a huge part of the band, and
totally.
And I remember when it happened, they announced that he was sick on like the 20th of December in, like, I think it was 2023.
2022 he passed away New Year's Eve.
Yeah. And he died, like, they basically announced it and he died like 5 days later. So, like, it was not public, and it was so fast, and it was like, wait. And it stinks because he was an incredible drummer, and is definitely talked about as one of the better drummers of the era and the time, and like what he brought to shows. And it's kind of an outfit that it's like now. I mean, they still play the music, but it's nice when you have the original members still there. So and he is a sad story of his. Fly High Jeremiah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just about the only drummer who could make this work, and boy did he ever.
Yeah, so edit the sad parts,
Yeah, that was a long drive for someone with nothing to think about.
Right, now everybody has a lot to think about, and basically just general homework of listening to Modest Mouse. And I mean, it is the anniversary. The anniversary just happened, so no better time than now.
Yeah, man, hop on the train, get into it a little bit, spend some time. And if you want extra credit on the homework assignment, listen to this record and don't do anything else while you're listening to it. Just sit there and listen.
Have that be the exercise. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think you'll be disappointed.
I don't think so.
I would love to get some good responses from this too, because if you're still listening now, let us know. Say something
send
about.
Send us an email, drop a comment, DM the Instagram page,
join Patreon, talk to us.
Because if you're a Modest Mouse fan, you have some big thoughts about this band, and we want to hear them because you just listened to us express our big thoughts for the last hour and 15 minutes. So we yield the floor to you now. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, I'm sure the conversation will continue at another point in time, but for now, that's all we have.
Exactly.
So Chris, do you have a song of the week? Do you have something you want to play?
I do. Yeah, I'll put Space Travel is Boring on the list. I've just been listening to it over and over again as we wrap up this podcast episode. So I'll put that one in. I'm pretty certain that I've put Talking Shit About a Pretty Sunset on the list before, so that would be my runner up. But Space Travel is Boring will be mine. What about you? Do you have something?
I do, absolutely. I will probably go with a song that we sent yesterday that I think that we both love, but Whenever You Breathe Out, I Breathe In, Positive, Negative.
Yeah, man.
Off of the building nothing out of something. That song is just beautiful, and I believe you sent something in and basically that was the one you had the story tied to it, and I had like a really similar experience because I was listening to it as I was reading what you went through, and it's just an awesome song. More just perfect music.
Dude, I didn't go to work for a month. I didn't leave my bed for 8 days straight. I haven't hung out with anyone. If I did, I'd have nothing to say.
Yeah. Yeah, we can relate,
Yeah. I didn't want to go to bed and I didn't want to stay awake.
Damn, it's so good.
Fuck, dude. I'm going to have to do an episode on that record.
Yeah, I'm down. Turn of the century.
Absolutely. Well, we would like to give a large thank you to our producer, Drew McFadden, who continues to keep the ship on course here. This wouldn't be possible without him, and we'd like to thank you, the listener, for spending the last bit of time with us. we're very grateful for your presence and for your engagement on this project, and look forward to seeing y'all back here next week for episode number 266. Maybe we'll get into another album. Maybe we won't, but we'll be here no matter what.
Amen. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you same time, same place next week.
Thanks, Ethan. Rock and roll, Chris. Everybody. Hanser.